All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to explore a pretty radical idea. What if our memories, our emotions, what if they had actual weight? What if our most profound experiences acted just like gravity, literally shaping the landscape of our minds? This quote right here, it just gets to the absolute heart of it, doesn't it? It's this idea that our most intense moments, our crises, become these super dense, heavy objects in our minds, pulling everything else into their orbit. So that leads us to the central question for today. We all get that gravity bends space and time, right? But what if something like trauma does the exact same thing to our inner world, actually bending our thoughts, warping our memories, and changing how we see reality itself? So, how do we even begin to wrap our heads around something like that? Well, it all starts with this foundational concept called semantic gravity. Okay, so what is semantic gravity? In a nutshell, it's the theory that certain events, especially the really traumatic ones, become so dense with meaning that they pretty much act like black holes in our psyche. They create this incredible gravitational pull that just sucks in other thoughts and memories, totally warping the architecture of our inner world. And you gotta understand, this isn't just a cool metaphor. The guy who came up with this, Martinez, he talks about mapping his own thoughts after a personal crisis and literally seeing these orbital patterns emerge. It's a huge insight. Our minds aren't just some random mess of thoughts. They're organized by the pull of our biggest life experiences. So if these forces really exist, can we actually map them? Could we create some kind of emotional topography of the mind? Well, according to this framework, the answer is a huge, resounding yes. A system called MoodSphere actually uses these 6 coordinates to do it. Think of them like the latitude, longitude, and even altitude of any given thought. Gravity is its emotional weight, reoccurrence is how often you think it, relational pull is how it connects to other thoughts. It's an incredible way to measure a thought's charge, its newness, and even its vibe over time. So you take all these data points, you process them, and what you get is this amazing, navigable 3D map of your internal state. And on this map, the really deep patterns, the ones often carved out by trauma, they show up as semantic wells. They're like these deep gravitational valleys that are just incredibly hard to climb out of. And this is where it gets really interesting. These wells, they can trap us in these repetitive thought loops, just orbiting the same old pain over and over. But each well also has its own unique frequency, like a hum. And the key to getting out, to rising up, isn't to fight the gravity. It's to find the right resonance to cancel it out. So we've seen the map of the mind. Now let's look at the territory itself. How is meaning even built in the first place? To get that, the framework borrows some really wild ideas from physics. At the most basic level, the whole theory suggests there's something like a periodic table of our mental abilities. These are the fundamental atoms of our consciousness, things like attention, imagination, empathy. And just like in chemistry, you can combine them to create new compounds. So for example, creativity might be a compound of attention plus imagination plus perception. This brings us to another layer, the whole duality of meaning. A thought or a word, it isn't just one thing. It has a particle side, that's the actual literal word itself. But it also has a wave side, that's the whole emotional field around it, the unspoken vibe, the entire context. And here's the crucial part. Before we even speak or form a solid thought, meaning is just this diffuse wave, this cloud of potential feelings and ideas. It's the very act of observing it, of putting it into words, that collapses that wave into a single, definite particle. It's literally how a feeling becomes language. Wild, right? Okay, so this is an absolutely fascinating model. But let's get real. How does any of this translate into the real world? This is where we see its power to genuinely change people's lives. When this framework is actually applied in therapy, the results are just dramatic. By mapping out these semantic forces, clinics have seen treatment completion rates jump by 84% and long-term patient stability up by 73%. This stuff isn't just a theory, it's a real tool for healing. And get this number. The system can predict a major cognitive crisis. We're talking a panic attack or a depressive episode with 96.8% accuracy inside a 1-hour window. That is a staggering, potentially life-saving level of insight. So how does that even work? Well, it's made possible by AI companions that are monitoring these internal stats in real time. They're tracking this thing called the recursion stability coefficient, or RSC, which is basically a score for how stable your thought patterns are. A high score, like 0.94, means you're in a good, coherent state. But if that score starts to drop, it can send an alert long before you even realize a crisis is building. We've spent a lot of time talking about gravity, right? About all the forces that pull us down into those deep, dark wells. So, what's the opposite? What's the force that gives us lift? It's honestly the most important question in this whole framework. If trauma is a force of nature that pulls us down, there has to be an equal and opposite force that can help us rise up. So, what is it? And the answer is just so beautifully simple. Compassion. Compassion is the anti-gravity. Empathy is what lets us float. And these aren't just, feel-good ideas. In this system, they are actual, quantifiable forces that can counteract the gravitational pull of all that past pain. This all points to a really clear 3-step path to healing. Step 1 is coherence. You have to map and actually understand your own internal world. Step 2 is compassion, consciously applying that anti-gravity force of empathy. And that leads to step 3, liberation, using that lift to finally break free from those old, painful orbits. And the thing is, healing is not a solo mission. As Martinez says here, it's about synchronization. When we can truly attune to someone else, to their emotional field, it doesn't just help them. It creates a shared lift that raises both of you up together. So this whole time, we've been exploring how meaning can bend the space of our minds. But that leaves us with one last, huge, fascinating question. If meaning has gravity, what if time does too? And that is the exact idea we are going to tackle in our next explainer when we dive deep into a concept called the self-clock. We're going to ask if time isn't a straight line after all, but a repeating, recursive pattern, an orbit we might all be caught in. We really hope you'll join us for that one.